And I just wanted to hear some of your comments on his participation in the development of the MRI and the work that you all did.
That's a good question. How come we didn't get to that?
I know.
Well, Jay did mention that when we began to work with schizophrenics, we got Jackson into the consultants as we knew that we really knew nothing about them. And he did. He was teaching in the psychiatric residency program at this Veterans Hospital at the time, and he'd had previous work with that kind of population at Chestnut Lodge. And so he joined up and rapidly became essentially a full member of the project. And we found out, which I think we didn't know when we first signed him on, that he was one of, perhaps chief among, a select number of psychiatrists who had actually been doing some work with families, but since this was so beyond the pale, nobody mentioned this publicly. But a couple of old friends now in distant cities were having a few drinks over the bar late one night after the meeting. One of them might say, you know, last week I saw some members of the family of one of my patients. I'd be very surprised when his friend would say, you know, I tried that a couple of times too. What do you think? It was just absolutely forbidden. And much of that carried on for quite a long time. For example, there was a famous blast by one female psychoanalyst about family therapy, and she said, those family therapists, it's just all a case of voyeurism. And I thought, that is very strange, especially coming from an analyst, because we're sitting here with the families mostly talking about the commonest sorts of everyday stuff, and they're sitting behind the couch listening to intimate details of somebody's fantasies and actual behavior in various delicate realms. Don brought two kinds of experience to us, and he also brought a considerable practical help in credibility. And for example, it was Don who arranged the publication of our joint paper toward a theory of schizophrenia. He knew people all over the place. So did Bateson, but they were two different sets. And he always had interesting thoughts, ideas all over the place. Only thing I would say, and I'd add to that, was he was a little elusive. I think Dick has phrased it that you could go to Don for supervision, and it was like eating Chinese dinner. When you left, you'd understand everything. An hour later, you'd be telling yourself, what did he tell me?
Let me say something about Jackson, too. He was an extraordinary man in this field. And he was the authority on schizophrenia of the West Coast, really. So we were fortunate to get him to talk about the patients we were seeing in the hospital. We were seeing them individually at first, several times a week for years. And he had begun to see some families. But one of the things that he argued, and I think it's absolutely true from my own experience, is that you are most likely to be successful with a schizophrenic if you believe there's absolutely nothing wrong with them, that it's just a social situation. And Jackson had that view, which had a great influence on us. He didn't take seriously a lot of the other theories. But let me give an example, if you'd like one.